Hey, what's going on everyone? So, as many of you know out there, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars games. I have a bunch of them in my collection. I like to get all the complete box physical versions of many of these classic games. So today, that's a little bit different. I'm going to be looking at a few uncommon Star Wars games that many people have probably seen here and there, but never really seen them complete in their box sets, with all the contents inside of them. Gonna unbox them, talk about the games themselves, show you guys all the different contents that come with them, and maybe, just maybe, you might see something that you probably never really saw before. So I hope you guys enjoy this idea. Let me know your thoughts about it in the comment section down below. So as many of you know, there are many different Star Wars games across all different types of platforms, but there are certain games that while they were probably popular back in the day, especially if there were certain movies that were coming out around the times like the prequels or anything else like that, some of those games just get lost to the tides of time. Like either people forget about them or they just don't talk about them anymore. And that's really what I want to highlight in a video like this. So let's start off with a good one that many people don't even realize or even remember this came out, especially if you were a Sega Genesis fan, because a lot of people had more Star Wars games on the Super Nintendo. So let's take a look at this one because one is very interesting. So this right here is Star Wars Arcade for the 32X. This is probably one of the very few Star Wars games to come out on a Sega platform, and the main reason being is because many of the popular Star Wars games were on the Super Nintendo, which was the Super Star Wars trilogy, and there's been other Star Wars games to come out on other Sega consoles down the line, long after this one. More specifically, we got Jedi Power Battles, I believe it was on the Dreamcast, and also Star Wars Demolition, that was also on the Dreamcast, and I believe there was also one on Saturn. I could be wrong about that, but I know as far as the 16-bit era, this is one of the very few Star Wars games to ever come out for the platform. Again, there was no Star Wars game on the Sega Genesis, flat out, but this one came out for the 32X, so it's kind of almost like a cousin of that platform. But here you go, this is the cartridge right here. 32X cartridges were very different than Sega Genesis cartridges because these were a little bit more beefier, a little bit bigger, as you could tell, mainly because these only worked on the 32X accessory for the Sega Genesis that went right on top of it. Looks like a big mushroom. But the reason why I want to show you guys some of this stuff is because we don't really get to see a lot of the other contents that come inside the actual boxes. So this is like a standard 32X type of box. It's a little bit more along the lines of the Genesis boxes later in the console lifetime, where they weren't using plastic anymore, they were just using cardboard. But put that to the side, this is the type of stuff we like to see. So whenever I get a game for my collection, I like to have the complete contents of it. So that includes these registration forms, these little registration forms where you could actually register your game. You could get certain type of guides or certain special bonuses or prizes. You get to see a lot of this, and we'll take a look in a bit. Later Lucasfilm games or LucasArts games. And here you go, as you can see, LucasArts 32X for Star Wars Arcade. This one was in black and white. Many of the guidebooks for Star Wars, not Star Wars, but Genesis in general, were black and white. They weren't made with color. That's what we got on the Super Nintendo, which is a little bit different. So as you can see here, New Hope is an ongoing fight. This game is based on Star Wars Episode 4, New Hope, but it does have a little bit of content specific and exclusive to this game that's based off of Return of the Jedi. It's at the very end of the game. But more specifically, I'm going to show you guys some of this stuff because we just don't get a chance to look at any of this stuff. A lot of different screenshots, how manuals were made back in the day. Very basic stuff, pretty much telling you all you need to know. A rundown of all the ships, or basically some of the different ships that you run into or that you're controlling, either an X-Wing or a Y-Wing. And of course, then we got the TIE Fighters, the Star Destroyers, and everything else. And I believe there's also a thing towards the end that shows the Death Star, which is coming up right now. Or no, they just show it there, but basically one of the main missions is you have to destroy the Death Star. But stuff like this is pretty cool to see because you don't often see a game like this out of its box, not necessarily complete in its box like that, and maybe just the cartridge just running around being sold at astronomical prices, which I think is ridiculous at times. I could go on eBay and I look at some of these games, what they're being sold for, and it's absolutely insane. You shouldn't be paying $60 for a cartridge of a game that came out, over 20 years ago, give or take? But yeah, there you go. That's Star Wars Arcade 32X, a classic. I definitely would love to see a remake or a remaster of this game in some form, like they're doing with many other Star Wars games. But definitely, if you haven't checked this out before, go look up some gameplay or go look at my video that I did on this game a while back. It's really cool. It's really awesome. But that's one game I wanted to take a look at. Let's try our hand at looking at something else a little bit more current. So here, I have two different PlayStation 1 Star Wars games that are pretty interesting or unique in their own ways. One is probably one of the worst Star Wars games of all time. Another one is a beloved classic that I still think has a lot of problems, but I understand why people like it. So I have all the PlayStation 1 Star Wars games in my collection so far. I have every single one of them, including Demolition. I have also Rebel Assault 2. I have Dark Forces, all the different ones. But these two are specifically special for a couple reasons. So before we look at the worst Star Wars game, let's look at this one. Now, many of you might be fans of Star Wars Episode 1 Jedi Power Battles, especially if you were a fan of Episode 1 The Phantom Menace. What makes this version unique is that it has this slipcase cover that goes in front of the manual that I'm going to show you guys right now. Whoops. Try to angle this so you guys could see it right. Pull it out here. The rest of the game and the content of it is pretty similar to what you would expect from Episode 1 Power Battles. And this is what makes this one unique, because it's harder to find a copy of this game with this intact. Now, when I got this one, I got it off eBay, and I got it with this already included. So you could find these, in certain copies of the game, but this is how it usually comes in. This is usually the box art cover or the manual cover for Episode 1 Power Battles. And as you could tell with the disc, it's similar to this slipcase cover. This was given to certain stores. You could think maybe like a Walmart or like a EB Games or something. Maybe like, I don't know, because this was like 97, 98, I believe it was. Let me look at the year on the back here. This was, damn, they don't even say it on the back of here like that, which I believe this one was closer to 2000, if I'm not mistaken, because this was post Episode 1. So yeah, they don't even say it on the back of this box here at all. But I would think that this was like around 2000, maybe 2001 or closer to it, 99 maybe. But the point is that this came with certain copies of the game within its first initial run. And then afterwards, you just saw the game and its greatest hits version with just this cover. These are, again, just as you can tell, it's like paper. It's just like a little flat paper, and it has like a little bit of a glow to it for Jedi Power Battles. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty interesting to see something like that, because often you're not going to find that with the actual game. As you can see here at the back of the disc, looks pretty cool. And again, nothing much more special beyond that with this was it manual or the contents of this version of Jedi Power Battles. I wish that there was something a little bit more that came alongside besides that little slip cover. But it is still cool to have stuff like this, and in good condition too, because you will often find people that probably own these back in the day, but over time, from moving around or constant use and stuff, they'll break down. A lot of the paper and cardboard stuff from the early to mid to late 90s, a lot of that stuff is a little harder to find in perfect condition. Even something like this, you could see in my case here for Jedi Power Battles, there's a couple nicks and stuff here and there, and even on this one over here for Masters of Terras Kasi. But again, time is really what messes some of these things up, and it could be a real pain in the butt to deal with that. So anyway, moving on to this one over here, one of the worst Star Wars games in my opinion. You can see a little smudge right there. But this is one of the better copies that I found in complete condition with everything included inside of it. Masters of Terras Kasi is probably one of the only official Star Wars fighting games that were ever released. And again, it really shows why, because this game was just not good. This game was really terrible because it played like Tekken, but was not as smooth and not as good as Tekken. We have original characters in here like Arden Lin, which is, you probably never heard of this character ever again. I don't even think she came back in any Legends material. I'd be very surprised if she did. There's got to be some book or comic book where she's around. But the point is that they had, this pretty much was Star Wars' attempts to get into the fighting game genre, and it never really did that well. It's hard to control. It has terrible design choices, terrible mechanics in it. It was annoying as heck. But overall, the game was a product of its time. Look at here, we have Luke Skywalker versus Boba Fett, and technically this game is supposed to take place after Episode 4 A New Hope, but it has Return of the Jedi stuff in it, which is, again, goofy as all can be. But either way though, that's these two Star Wars games on the PlayStation. I figured this would be at least a little novel thing for you guys to take a look at, but I got something even more different and unique for you guys to check out here. So speaking of unique and weird and probably one of the worst Star Wars games of all time, here are two more of my most recent additions to my collection. We have Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, the official game for the movie, as well as also Star Wars Flight of the Falcon. Absolutely has to be the worst Star Wars game ever released. It's right up there with Yoda stories, let me put it that way. But the point is, okay, these are two of my newest editions that I've gotten, and a lot of people, again, don't really talk about them. They don't really kind of discuss them. So some of you have maybe never seen some of the stuff that comes inside these games complete, unless you own them back in the day. So let me try to get the actual game itself. Oh, there we go. Just to show you guys, again, here's the cartridge. Again, if you owned a GBA back in the day and you were a Star Wars fan, you probably owned this game. You probably got it from your parents or something, but who knows? Either way, this is the type of stuff you want to see, though, because not only do we have our manual, we have our GBA, like, you know, promo material, which is like, I guess, you know, little thing that you could subscribe to, get like Nintendo Power or whatever else. That's cool. And of course, this came with every Game Boy Advance game. But stuff like this, though, didn't always come with this game. So we got a poster, which is pretty neat. And then on the back, we have it for the Game Boy Advance version of Jedi Power Battles. Look at how it ties in right into that, okay? Funny enough, it was made by THQ over here, and I believe the other one was made just by LucasArts. I'm not sure. Sorry, I gotta go back and look at the package again. I don't remember. But either way, we get a little poster for Attack of the Clones, and there's not a lot of Attack of the Clones games, like specific games for that movie, because besides this one, which is literally called Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones, we did have the Clone Wars on PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube, but we also had Star Wars The New Droid Army, which is also on the Game Boy Advance. So if you've never explored any of this stuff, this game specifically plays very similar to the GBA version of Revenge of the Sith, which is like a beat-em-up, you know, a brawler where you're fighting a bunch of droids and all the other stuff. And what's funny is that this game specifically follows the events of the movie. So it's pretty close to what you get in the actual movies. Like, look, we got the chase, we got Obi-Wan going to Kamino, we got him fighting in space against Jango Fett. You know, you actually get to be Anakin. Funny enough, here, let me show you guys this. You get to be Anakin slaughtering the Tusken Raiders in the village when he's actually finds his mother in episode 2. So there's stuff like that you just don't get to see in other places. And at the very end, I believe, yeah, I think it's the very end, if there's more like that. Yeah, you get the battle on Geonosis, and you get to play as Mace Windu, and also the battle against Count Dooku at the very end with Obi-Wan and Anakin. That's how the game ends. It's kind of, you know, an anticlimactic ending for the game itself, you know, within the game, even though it's like a big part of the movie. But still, again, one of the more like limited, or like one of the few movies that, or the few games that are based on this movie, and we just don't see a lot of that here. So let me put this back in there, because again, I want to make sure that it stays in good quality. But let me know some of your thoughts if you had this game, or if you had any of the other episode 2 specific stuff from back in the day. Because again, in their full complete boxes, you can see I'm trying to be very careful with it, trying to put it all together and find it in like great quality, you know, for at least what I paid, for the price that I paid for these things. Thank God it wasn't that expensive, but still, like, you'll find like places on eBay that are just like charging an arm and a leg for this type of stuff. Okay, it's getting caught up on the thing there. I want to make sure that it doesn't rip or anything. Okay, there we go. There we go, because it's like, again, you got to be very careful with this stuff here just to make sure that it works out pretty good. I might have to adjust it just a tiny bit, you know, like that. But there you go. There in its complete package. Like I said, often like these cardboard packagings for many different games, they don't always come in the best quality. I mean, look at this, like when I even got it, like it's usually time that usually does that to a lot of these games, and people, you know, they're not even thinking about preservation back in the day. But here we go. Here's the other one that we have to talk about, the other worst Star Wars game ever made, Star Wars Flight of the Falcon. I mean, look at this thing. I've done a video about this before. I think I even played it on the channel. You could go look here on the channel now. It's just so bad, man. Like, it's a terrible, terrible game in every sense of the word, because it just looks garbage. Hold on, let me try to pull this out. It even came with the plastic of the actual game, which probably tells you that not many people, this wasn't really played with all that much. There you go, Flight of the Falcon. Doesn't even have the Millennium Falcon on the cartridge. See, even the game packaging didn't even want nothing to do with this game. But either way, this is the manual. Not a lot of stuff that comes inside of it, but you could at least, you know, get a quick glimpse of what, you know, is inside the instruction manual. This one, again, Nintendo packagings or Nintendo manuals were made with color, which is always nice. Even the Game Boy games, I think, were also made of color, because I have a couple Game Boy Color games that had, like, color manuals as well. But, again, look at this. Some of these levels you won't even get to. Like, this one pretty much goes through all the original trilogy from Episode 4 through Episode 6, leading up to the Battle of Endor right there. But again, these games aren't all that great, man. They're very meh. They're very, very meh. Or at least this particular game is very, very meh. And here you go in the back. we just looked at episode 2 Attack of the Clones, and eventually I want to get a copy of New Droid Army, but not have to pay like an arm and a leg for it, you know, just to have for the collection, just to have it on GBA to say that I do, because that's one of the only other specifically episode 2 games from back in the day when the movie came out. I believe New Droid Army came out sometime after the episode 2 game on GBA. I want to say maybe later that year, if not the following year, because it was a couple years before we got episode 3 Revenge of the Sith, you know, from when episode 2 came out. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was a little downtime between the two of them. But overall, those are those two games, and we're going to look at one more little pairing that I have here, which might not be too uncommon, but at least uncommon enough that some people may have not seen some of the contents of the packaging. But let's take a look at that now and get away from this thing, because oh my god, it's so terrible. So finally, let's look at two classics on the Xbox that people love. I know these games have been around, they get a lot of praise, but again, for some people out there, they may have not seen like the box copies and the contents of these games. So to me, it's a little uncommon to find them so complete like what I'm about to show you. So yeah, the Jedi Knight games, Jedi Outcast and Jedi Academy. So here we are, the two Jedi Knight games. Let's start out with Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. Again, many people have played these games across different platforms. This one in particular is available on multiple spots, including the Xbox, the GameCube, and also on PC. And it also got re-released as well. But again, for many that didn't even get a chance to see this on the original Xbox, there's a couple interesting things to look at. So here's the registration card. As you can tell, it's getting a little transparent there. But you can see here it has a little Kyle Katarn fighting the main bad guy of the game in there, as well as also a little Kyle Katarn on the top there. These are cool because you got to see these registration cards for LucasArts games more commonly in later Star Wars releases and other LucasArts games, but mostly Star Wars, where you would mail this in and you would actually get like little pieces of gear, little like, you know, registration stuff, including other things related to the specific game. It was cool to see that. So here's the manual. The manual is pretty beefy, and check it out. This little fold-out section is intact, so we got a couple things in here. We got Obi-Wan on Xbox, Starfighter Special Edition, and also the upcoming release of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic in 2003. It's pretty dope. And also, of course, here we got a little bit more of the LucasArts stuff. You got the manual, or the guide, I should say, for Jedi Outcast. And also, you get yourself a little LucasArts or Jedi Knight hoodie, which is pretty cool, or mug. If you like LucasArts that much, you get yourself a nice mug. So stuff like this, you don't often see in good condition. Like, I'm glad that at least this is still connected to it, which is pretty cool. But anyway, here's the manual. So manual's in like this monochromatic like blue, which I always thought was weird. I get that there's a whole blue motif with the game, especially in the menus, but I like my manuals to be more color filled, like actual like full color spread, so I can look at certain things specifically when I actually run into them in games. So it's pretty cool to see different things like that. We got a little bit of stuff with the menus, some of the characters, you know, all these different guys, Kyle Katarn himself, which is pretty cool, pretty dope. It's awesome to see stuff like this. But either way, what I thought was also interesting is that we got Jedi Knight 2 on multiple consoles, right? We got it on the Xbox, the GameCube, and also on PC. But we never got the first Jedi Knight game on consoles. We got this one and we got Jedi Academy. But the first Jedi Knight, which is Dark Forces 2, technically, we never got that, which I always thought was weird. It was always a weird thing that we never got to see happen. That's something that should get remastered, or should get at least, you know, some sort of reprint, you know, so people could play it, or have like a Jedi Knight collection that includes these two games and the original. But either way, that's Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast. Now here's Jedi Academy, same thing. So it's pretty cool to see the box art for it. A little bit different than the first one, even though it's got the same logo. But yeah, so in here we got the manual, and a little bit different with the registration card. It's a little bit much more kind of like solid. It's got a little bit better coloring. Got the back in here too. Oh, whoops, it's underground there. So we got a little bit of Rancor action, because you know you run into a Rancor in the game, but I like it where it's like this. This is where you start to see the registration cards look a little bit more like this. We've seen it in other Star Wars games on the Xbox, including, I believe, also in Knights of the Old Republic and a few others as well. But here's the manual, the same thing. It's got this little kind of like fold out. A little bit of like some other games for Xbox, including Gladius. We got Knights of the Old Republic, the first one anyway. And also, you get a little baseball cap for, was it Jedi Academy, which is pretty cool. I wonder if people back in the day really got this in droves, because it is Star Wars, you would think, right? But anyway, this manual, it's in black and white, I guess you say, or grayscale, but it has a little bit of color. Again, why didn't they just make it in color? I always thought that was weird. I like my manuals to be a little bit much more handled with care, kind of like what Nintendo does with some of the other ones we've seen before. But it's pretty cool seeing this type of stuff. I think it's pretty dope, but Either way, figured for many of you that didn't see these games like this, or at least see the contents of them that came with them back in the day, this is a little treat for all of you. So there you go, guys. Hopefully you all got a kick out of this. Again, something a little bit different for the channel, and because I have so many of these Star Wars games in box condition that I could actually look at them and show some of you if you've never actually owned these physically. But let me know your thoughts about all this in the comment section down below. And of course, make sure you leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel when you can. There's a whole playlist related to Star Wars games, unboxings, gameplay videos, reviews. There's a lot on here, especially if you're a big Star Wars fan. There's so much content for you to watch. I will talk to all of you again very soon.
This channel is sponsored by Flynn's Arcade and More, located in Margate, Florida. Flynn's is one of the premier spots for gaming fans in South Florida. They have a variety of arcade games on cabinet for you to play throughout the week, including all of your beloved classics. You could also play a ton of new and current console games too, on PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo consoles. Grab a snack or drink and enjoy the best gaming experience you'll find. Visit during one of their many big events to connect with the gaming community in South Florida. Want to test your skills in competitive fighting games? Join any of the weekly tournaments that happen at Flynn's for a chance for some cool prizes. And if you're into tabletop gaming or model kit building, there's a bunch of events there for you too. Swing by Flynn's Arcade and More, located in Margate Boulevard in Margate, Florida. You won't find a better spot than Flynn's. Thanks a bunch for watching the video. I really appreciate it a ton. I'll have more videos for you to enjoy here on the side that I know you'll love. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that bell icon too. Don't forget to visit my Patreon linked below for early access to new videos every week, and join the Discord server too. It's linked in the description box below. You'll definitely love being a part of it. Thanks again, peace out, and stay epic everybody.